Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing something a little different.
A little bit.
We are turning down the lights, locking the doors, and, well, lighting a candle.
Definitely.
Usually we're here breaking down tech trends or, historical shifts, but today we are stepping into the weird.
And I think you mean the good kind of weird.
Oh, absolutely, the good kind of weird.
It is certainly a departure from our usual fare, but, looking at the calendar, it just feels appropriate.
It does.
We are analyzing a recording made just days before Halloween, way back in 1965. So the veil is thin, the shadows are long.
And we have a very specific document to unpack.
We do.
Spooky season is indeed upon us. So picture the scene. It's October 25th, 1965. The leaves are turning in Elmira, New York. The air is crisp. And inside a living room, a couple is sitting down to talk to, well, a disembodied personality.
That's one way to put it.
We are looking at session 201 from the early sessions, book 5 of the Seth Material.
And this is a fascinating document. I mean, for those of you who might be a bit skeptical of the metaphysics, I just ask you to treat this as a study in consciousness.
That's a great way to frame it.
Yeah, we're really looking at a transcript where a distinct personality, Seth, is teaching a couple how to map the geography of their own minds. It's a practical guide.
And before we get into the ghostly details, and trust me, there are some very specific details. We're talking luggage tickets and ulcers.
Oh, yeah.
We need to set the stage. So who are the players here? We've got Jane Roberts, the medium.
Right. And Seth refers to her as Rupert. And then you have her husband, Robert Butts, who Seth calls Joseph.
And Rob is the scribe here, right? He's the one furiously writing all this down.
He is, in shorthand, while Jane is in a full trance state. So he's a critical part of the process.
And then, of course, we have Seth.
Seth, who describes himself as an energy personality essence. Now, look, regardless of where you stand on channeling, whether you think it's a spirit, a secondary personality, whatever, what makes the early sessions so critical is that this is a training ground. This isn't just abstract philosophy about the soul.
No, it's very hands-on.
It is. This is Seth teaching Jane and Rob in real time how to use their own psychic abilities. It is, for all intents and purposes, a user's manual for human perception.
It really reads like a lab report sometimes. It's not just, love and light. It's, here is how you view a motel room 300 miles away.
Exactly.
Now, a quick but important disclaimer before we dive in. This deep dive is distributed completely free of charge on all major platforms, and it's for educational purposes. We're here to explore the ideas, analyze the text, and see what we can learn.
And we absolutely must give credit where it's due. This material comes to us from the New Awareness Network.
Yes.
If what we discuss today sparks your curiosity, and I really have a feeling it will, you need to go to the source. You can find these books at sethcenter.com. Just look under the early sessions.
We're just scratching the surface here. The books are the real deep dive.
They really are.
So what's our mission today? We're going to unpack session 201. And this session it's a wild ride.
It is.
We have dream analysis that involves a pun so bad it's actually brilliant. We have a theory about furniture that will make you want to apologize to your sofa.
I already have.
And we have some of the most specific, uncanny remote viewing tests I have ever read.
What really draws me to session 201 is that blend of the domestic and the supernatural.
Right.
You have Seth talking about the nature of consciousness and matter, and then in the very next breath, he's giving travel updates on their friend's vacation or, commenting on a magazine publication.
It grounds the high strangeness in absolute reality.
It does. It makes it feel possible.
Okay, let's start with the dream. This is really the entry point for the whole session. So, Rob Jane's husband had a dream on Thursday night, October 21st.
Okay.
In the dream, he sees that Jane's short story, The Big Freeze, has been published and that she's going to get paid for it.
And context here is so vital. Jane was a working writer. And like so many freelance writers, there was always that underlying hum of anxiety about sales, about money.
Of course.
So Rob's dream was very specific. He didn't just dream, oh, Jane sold a story. He dreamt specifically of The Big Freeze. And he dreamed that it was the first of 2 sold stories to actually appear in print.
And here is the reality check. 2 days later, Saturday, October 23rd, Jane goes to the newsstand and finds Dude magazine.
A classic publication of that era.
Indeed. And inside, there it is, The Big Freeze.
Wow.
It had actually hit the stands on Friday the 22nd, so Rob's dream was completely accurate.
Unbelievable.
But here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, this is where the mechanics of the mind it blows me away.
Okay.
When Rob woke up from that dream, he didn't remember the title, The Big Freeze. He forgot it. but he felt physically cold, like shivering cold.
And this is just a brilliant example of how the subconscious mind translates information. Seth breaks this down in the session.
He does.
He tells Rob that this was a clairvoyant dream. The information that the story was published was brand new data. Rob couldn't have known it through any normal channels.
But why the shivering? I mean, why make him feel like he needs a sweater instead of just, giving him the title?
Because the conscious mind serves as a filter. It's a gatekeeper. Often, it blocks or forgets the literal words when you wake up because they don't fit the immediate physical context.
So his conscious mind drops the ball.
It dropped the ball. Rob forgot the words, the big freeze. So the subconscious, being this, clever translator, converted the concept of freeze into a physical sensation, cold.
That is the aha moment for me. Seth says, and I'm quoting here, this intuition was translated into bodily sensation. It implies that the body is, the final readout for the mind.
It does. And it forces you to ask, how often does this happen to us?
All the time, probably.
Right? How many times do we wake up with a stiff neck or a weird feeling in our stomach or just feeling off, and we just assume it's biology?
But maybe it's a pun.
Maybe it's a pun. Maybe our subconscious is playing charades with us every single morning.
I'm cold, therefore the big freeze. It's almost a dad joke from the deep mind.
It really is. And Seth actually emphasizes that the body and the mind are not separate things at all. Information is energy, and that energy can be translated into words or images or physical feelings. In this case, the sensation of cold was just a clue.
There's a backup system.
It was the subconscious shouting the title of the story because the conscious memory had failed.
And there was a practical utility to this dream, too. It wasn't just some cool parlor trick.
No, not at all.
Rob was worried about money.
He was. And Seth points this out. He says that Rob's concern over their financial matters actually gave impetus to his abilities. He basically asked a question to the universe. Are we going to be okay money-wise?
And the universe answered.
It answered with a precognitive dream about a paycheck. Seth is very reassuring here. He says, and this is another quote, "There is no reason for you to worry about financial matters."
It's like a cosmic pat on the back. Relax, the check is in the mail. Oh, and also, here's a blanket because you're freezing.
It really demonstrates that these abilities are often tied to our deepest needs and our anxieties. They function to help us navigate our reality, not just to show off.
Speaking of navigating reality and spending that paycheck, let's move on to the next segment.
Okay.
Rob and Jane, flushed with this new success, they decide to do a little retail therapy. They go out and buy some items for their apartment, some furniture, decor, that sort of thing.
And this leads to one of the most fascinating metaphysical theories in the entire session. We could call it the physics of furniture.
I love that, the physics of furniture. So Seth comments on their shopping spree. He says they were wise to make the purchases because they bought the items in high spirits.
And he's doing more than just saying treat yourself. He's making a really deep point about the atomic nature of matter. He says, and I want to quote this because it's so profound, the objects were bought in high spirits, and they will retain to some rather strong degree the psychic exuberance which has become part of them.
Psychic exuberance. That is such a weighted phrase. It implies that the lamp or the chair isn't just wood and fabric. It's a battery.
It's a battery, precisely. Seth argues that because energy forms matter, the emotion felt during the acquisition or creation of an object becomes part of its electromagnetic climate.
Wow.
So if you buy a dining table while you're having a huge fight with your spouse, that table is going to hold that tension. It literally becomes a radiator of bad vibes.
But in this case, they were happy. They were celebrating a success, so the furniture radiates that psychic exuberance.
Exactly. It adds to what Seth calls the constructive climate of their dwelling. This is really the basis for what parapsychologists call psychometry. The ability to read the history of an object just by touching it.
So he's explaining the mechanics behind it.
He's explaining the mechanics. Objects have character, and they obtain that character from their owners and the circumstances around them.
So if you walk into a room and it feels heavy or sad, it might not just be the lighting or the color of the paint.
It might be the accumulated emotional history of the stuff in the room. The chairs, the rug, the paintings.
That gives a whole new meaning to spring cleaning.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about dust. It's about clearing out old energetic patterns.
Yeah.
And for you listening, Think about that the next time you bring something into your home. What is your mood? What's the energy of the transaction? You are literally furnishing your life with emotion.
I am definitely going to be smiling aggressively the next time I buy a toaster. You are a happy toaster. You are full of joy.
It certainly couldn't hurt the toast.
I suppose not. All right, so they've got the happy furniture. Now let's talk about Jane's psi time. This is a term that comes up a lot in the Seth Material psychological time.
Psi time is essentially a state of, well, dissociation or trance that Jane practices. She quiets her mind, she tunes out the physical world, and she turns her attention inward to perceive other realities.
So it's a mechanism she uses for these experiments.
It is. It's distinct from sleep. She's awake, but her focus is shifted away from physical coordinates.
And in this session, Seth confirms that Jane's experience on October 22nd, a few days before the session, was quite legitimate.
Right.
She had this vision, this projection of a motel.
The details are very cinematic. She sees a double-story motel or maybe a raised single-story with a long, narrow porch. There's a pool. She feels like the ocean or some large body of water is nearby.
And she's trying to find her friends, Bill and Peggy Gallagher, who are away on vacation.
She is.
She describes trying to project herself to them. And this is where it gets visceral again. It's not just seeing a picture in her mind like a movie screen.
No.
She reports these really intense physical sensations, strong, thrilling sensations, feelings of being swept away.
That is a common report in out-of-body or projection literature. The physical body reacts to the consciousness leaving or expanding.
She even notes that she felt her blanket moving as if her body was twitching, even though she thought she was perfectly motionless.
And she describes a feeling of extreme lightness or weightlessness.
It's so interesting that Seth validates this. He doesn't say, oh, that was just your imagination. He says it was legitimate. Her consciousness was actually traveling.
And that leads us perfectly into the main event of this session, the remote viewing of the Gallaghers. This is where the rubber really meets the road.
Oh, this is the good stuff. So it's 9:29 p.m. Jane is in a trance. Her voice gets slow, quiet.
She's tuning in.
She is tuning in on Bill and Peggy Gallagher, who are supposed to be flying home from Puerto Rico at that very moment.
And she starts describing an airplane. Now, you have to keep in mind, Jane explicitly states later in the session notes that she has never been inside an airplane.
No frame of reference.
Zero frame of reference for this environment.
But she just starts rattling off these details. She sees a female in blue sitting behind them, a middle-aged couple across from them. And then she gets this specific hit about Dayton or Daytona.
This is a fascinating moment for understanding how psychic data is interpreted. Jane says the couple come from Daytona or Dayton. She's confused.
She's second-guessing it.
She is. She knows she and Rob have been to Daytona Beach, but never Dayton, Ohio. So she's trying to verify the data against her own memory.
It's like her brain is trying to auto-complete the search term.
That is the perfect analogy. But Seth steps in, or rather, the information clarifies, that it's not about the city itself. It's about a man connected to the paper business.
The paper business.
Yeah, production of paper, not newspapers. The word Dayton or Daytona was a symbol or a link to this person's identity or origin. It just shows that psychic data often comes in symbols that the medium has to decode.
It's like a game of telephone with the universe. You get a sound or an image and you have to figure out what it means.
You do.
But then she gets incredibly specific with numbers. She mentions a gate or runway number 3 or 5, and then she says luggage ticket number 35.
Luggage ticket number 35. Just let that sink in. That is hyper-specific. That is not a general, I sense safe travels. That is hard data.
The odds are astronomical.
If you are guessing, the odds of hitting that are, yeah, astronomical.
And then the hit that just makes me wince, she starts talking about their friend Bill Gallagher.
Oh.
She says, our friend's ulcer may show a slight twinge here as he passes through the terminal.
Talk about invasive.
Oh, nice.
But it proves the point. She isn't just seeing them, she is sensing them. She is picking up on the biological reality of Bill's ulcer reacting to the stress of travel.
It's just chillingly accurate. And she follows them through the terminal. She describes the counters to the right. She sees a white-haired gentleman they met, age about 62. Name starts and ends with A.
The detail is relentless. And then the arrival in New York. She describes the cab ride. Now, for our younger listeners, you might want to brace yourselves. She says it's a $3 fare, and she notes that this seems large.
$3, a large fare. Welcome to 1965, everybody.
and the destination, a room on the 5th floor or higher.
And she gets this mysterious word, elm.
Elm.
And she feels a distinct right turn. Jane says later she felt her inner self physically turning right after traveling in a straight line. It's physical again.
This whole segment just demonstrates the omniscience aspect of the inner self that Seth is always teaching. Distance doesn't matter, walls don't matter.
Nope.
If you can tune the frequency, the information is just there. The Gallaghers are hundreds of miles away in a metal tube in the sky, and Jane is sitting in her back room in Elmira, counting the buttons on a passenger's coat.
It really forces you to rethink privacy, doesn't it? If someone can just tune in and check on your ulcer.
It certainly raises some ethical questions, but in the context of the Seth Material, it's really about demonstrating that we are all connected. There's no private space in the conscious universe because consciousness is the medium we all swim in.
We're all ripples in the same pond. Okay, so we've done the vacation report. Now the session takes a turn. The vibe shifts quite a bit.
It does.
We move from the bright, busy airport to something darker, gothic almost.
This is the Dr. Instream test. Dr. Instream was a contact of theirs, and Seth often used him as a target for these clairvoyant tests. But you're right, the atmosphere changes completely.
Jane starts describing a room that isn't well lit at all. There are shadows everywhere. She sees a cloth, maybe a handkerchief on a table, a red candle, and this tall, dark, rectangular piece of furniture just looming in the background.
It feels like a seance scene in an old movie. She describes straight-back chairs, open types, maybe some glass doors nearby. It's austere.
And the social dynamic she picks up on is conflict.
Yes. She senses a disagreement between Dr. Instream and a man with a mustache.
Of course, a man with a mustache.
And the topic is heavy. It's about money, policy, and specifically a government training program of military nature.
Whoa. That is a stark contrast to the Luggage Ticket 35 and the paper business. We're talking about military training programs and government funds.
It just shows the range of the channel. Seth isn't limited to happy domestic matters. He can tap into serious, perhaps even classified conversations.
It suggests the information field doesn't care about security clearance.
Not one bit.
And then she drops another one of those hyper-specific details that just floors me. She sees 2 coins on the table, and she dates one of them, 1930.
One of the coins is dated 1930. Again, why that detail? In remote viewing, we call this an anchor.
An anchor.
Yeah. When you are remote viewing, your mind grabs onto hard data to validate the connection. A date on a coin is a perfect piece of hard data. It's verifiable. It's concrete.
It really emphasizes that for the subconscious, a government military secret and a 1930 penny are just data. They're just bits of information floating in the ether.
Exactly. The subconscious doesn't judge importance the way our ego does. It just reports what it sees. The ulcer, the penny, the military policy, it's all just part of the tapestry.
So Seth wraps up this intense viewing session, and he moves into prediction mode. He gives a forecast for the future.
And he returns to the topic of Jane's writing, which is nice. He predicts she will sell more short stories soon, specifically at least one before the publication of the other story that has already been sold.
Which is a nice confidence booster. But then he drops some bad news.
He does.
He mentions Jane's aunt, her mother's sister. He says there will be word concerning her, and it's not of a fortunate nature.
And this is the reality of psychic work. It's not all winning lottery numbers and sold stories. Sometimes you see illness or bad news. And Jane hadn't seen this aunt in years, but the connection was still there.
It reminds us that these webs of connection persist even when we aren't actively maintaining them.
They do. And he also predicts that Dr. Instream, the guy in the Gothic room with the coins, will receive an important letter in about 4 days regarding his hypnosis experiments.
It's a constant weaving of time, past, present, future. To Seth, these distinctions are so much more fluid than they are to us.
He sees the letter arriving in 4 days, just as clearly as he sees the coin on the table right now.
But then, and this is why I find this material so engaging, after all this heavy lifting, after the ulcers and the military talk and the bad news about the aunt, he ends with a joke.
A classic Sethism. It's his signature move.
It is. He talks about their friends in New York eating turkey, and he says, quote, "It is better to eat turkey than crow."
It's a terrible dad joke, really.
It is.
But it's so charming coming from a high-intellect, disembodied entity.
It really is. It is better to eat turkey than crow. It's witty. It's cosmopolitan.
And I think it serves a very specific purpose. High-level psychic work requires a lot of energy. It can be intense, draining.
Sure.
So Seth often uses humor at the end of a session to ground Jane and Rob to bring them back to a normal human vibration. It's a release valve.
It reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously, even when we are exploring the mysteries of the universe.
Precisely. The universe has a sense of humor. If we are created in the image of the divine and we laugh, then the divine must laugh too.
So, what does this all mean? We've looked at the sources, we've unpacked the session. What is the takeaway for you listening to this?
For me, the synthesis here is about the permeability of our reality.
Permeability, I like that.
We tend to think of ourselves as these sealed units. My mind is here, your mind is there, the table's just wood, a dream is just a random firing of neurons.
But Session 201 challenges all of that.
Completely.
Yeah.
It suggests that our minds can travel to airplanes and see luggage numbers. It suggests that our furniture holds our joy. It suggests that our dreams are sending us memos about our bank accounts.
It makes the world feel richer and maybe a little more crowded if everything has an energetic signature.
It does. It suggests that consciousness is the fundamental fabric. We aren't just observers in a dead universe. We are active participants in a living, breathing, communicating web of energy.
And it brings it back to the body. That's what sticks with me, that big freeze pun.
Yes.
It's a reminder to listen to our physical selves.
That is a crucial point.
Yeah.
We are often so disconnected from our bodies, we treat them like machines that just carry our heads around.
Yeah, a taxi for the brain.
Right. But Seth is showing us that the body is a sophisticated antenna. It receives data, and it translates it into sensation.
So here is my final provocative thought for you, the listener. If Rob's feeling of being chilly was actually a message about a story called The Big Freeze, what are your physical sensations telling you right now?
That is the question to ponder, isn't it?
Is that headache just dehydration, or is it a warning about a headache at work tomorrow? Is that butterfly in your stomach just nerves, or is it a precognitive flutter about something exciting coming your way?
How much of our daily physical experience is actually psychic data that we are misinterpreting as just biology? It is a fascinating lens to view your life through.
It really is. I'm going to be analyzing every sneeze from now on.
As you should.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive into the spooky, cozy, and surprisingly funny world of Session 201.
It has been a pleasure. And again, we want to remind you that the source of all this wisdom is the early sessions, Book 5 of the Seth Material.
Yes, please support the preservation of this material. Go to sethcenter.com and find the early sessions, buy the books, read them for yourself. We're just the tool guides. The territory is vast.
And remember, this deep dive is distributed free of charge for educational purposes. We do it for the love of the mystery.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep your minds open.
And maybe check your furniture for good vibes.
Exactly. Good night, everyone.